Welcome to the Making of Me podcast. Today, guest is Randy Bishop, an author, speaker, and guide for people navigating midlife transition and season change. Rounding is a creator of Rementored, a practical framework for reflecting, reframing, and restoring direction when life feels unsettled. His work focuses on identity, purpose, and meaning, helping people who seem successful on the outside but feel off balance internally. It's really a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here. I really look forward to our talk.
So, Randy, what challenge shape you into who you are today?
Well, I tell you what, there's so many, but when it
Yeah.
comes right down to it, at this point, I am 60 years old and I've lived a lifetime. And one of the things that really, when it came down to it, is understanding that one morning I woke up and I asked myself, is this it? Is this everything? I mean, I've struggled through this and I've struggled through that. And I realized that the real challenge that I was facing was that I had become somebody for everyone else, but I hadn't become who I wanted to be. I hadn't become authentic to my voice, authentic to how I wanted to live, authentic to how I wanted to communicate. And so that challenge really kind of woke me up and made me consider who I am and how I was going to walk from this day on.
Wow, that was really amazing, and I'm glad that you did that. Yeah,
Yeah,
amazing,
me too.
amazing. So many people actually want to fix successfully externally, but unsettled internally. How do you help them recognize the differences between survivor-based identity and authentic identity?
Well, I'll tell you what, I am dealing with that so much in so many places with so many people. Survivor identity, let's just make sure that we understand what we're talking about. A survivor
Yeah.
identity is that identity that's been created so that you don't collapse as a person. And what I mean by that is life may not be able to go my way, but I'm going to survive my circumstance by creating a persona that I can bear. Okay. The problem with that is it's not authentic. It's what I'm creating, right? I'm creating it to survive, or someone's creating it for me or influencing me to create, as opposed to an authentic identity where you're saying, because I feel this way, because I believe this, because I think like this, therefore I'm going to act like this, I'm going to be this way. We call it alignment. When you're aligned, what you do is you're aligning your actions, you're aligning your life with the way you feel and your belief system. So they're very, very different.
Wow.
Survivorship is not about how you feel, it's not about what you believe. Survivorship is about how can I manage where I'm at.
Yeah, amazing. Survivor-based. How can I manage who I am compared to living
Yeah.
out who you truly are from identity? Yeah, that's really amazing. So you actually developed a re-method to guide reflections and reframing. Can you explain how reflection can reclaim agency, and the presence without dwelling in the past?
Well, I tell you what, you're always going to dwell in the past just a little bit, and it's
Yeah,
okay. But I'm going to add on to that last statement before I move on, if I can. And that
yeah.
is very simple. I'm dealing with this in so many places, and I certainly dealt with it in my own life, which is why I wrote. Can I show the book? Which is why I wrote the book, okay? Because this was my journey. This is what I
Wow.
did. I didn't go to a counselor. I didn't spend time talking to experts. I spent time in myself and said, who am I? What do I do about this? Where am I going to go? I have friends who are, you're tearing apart your whole life. What are you doing? And I said, I want to know. I want to know and I want to do it right. I don't want to do it for everyone else anymore. But jumping off of what we were just talking about, when you're in a survivor identity, okay, you're going to struggle becoming authentic because you have two different systems working in your body. You've got your survivor system that's fighting for just the peace and safety that you've created. And then you've got this freedom system that wants to be you, that wants to be who you really are. And they go to war at each other. So it's going to be some work. Does it take a lot of work? It just depends on how big of a survivor identity you have. Again, this has nothing to do with years and years of counseling or anything else. This is just my getting down in the dirt and wrestling with it process. So let's step forward. How do we not just dwell in the past and live in the past. And I would say it like this. It takes, do you know the process it takes to eat an elephant?
No, it's very big. I don't even know where to start from.
If you're going to eat an elephant, what are they? A couple thousand pounds, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
big. It's a big process. You take one bite at a
yeah.
time. So let's talk about our identity. Let's talk about what becoming authentic as opposed to our survivor identity or whatever identity we've created. The process is going to be one bite at a time.
At a time.
Okay? Because if you try to tackle everything, you're going to be inundated with so
Hmm.
much stuff. You're just going to think that it's impossible. I'm working with a few people right now, one specifically, and they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. They're standing at the threshold. They're standing right there. Their toes are right by the door, but it seems such a chasm to get across the threshold of the door. Why is that? It's because there's so much safety in this identity. If they'd had to try to do this all at one time, it would have been an impossible move. But they go one bite at a time. My book, The Method, is basically a platform where you have three steps. First, you reflect. Reflect on your current beliefs, you reflect on your experiences, and you reflect on your choices. Now, when I recommend people do that, this was the process I went through. I didn't sit around for days and days on end and make endless lists of all of those things. I had a question about one, and then I worked on it. And then my next step is to reframe. And reframe means you're going to take a limited perspective. You're going to take one of these beliefs, one of these experiences, one of these choices, and we're going to turn them into something that's empowering rather than limiting the way they were. Does that make sense? Am I saying it too
Yeah,
big? I mean, the idea
yeah,
is we've believed something that limits us, but how can we make that an empowering statement? How can we make that something that moves us forward? Okay. Then the next step is to restore. And what I mean by restore is you're going to restore your life. You're going to have more intentional actions that line up. That's that alignment we talk about to your true identity, to your true goals. It's going to align up with who you really believe you are. And the most important part of the process is you're not done there. Because if you just reflect and reframe and restore on one thing, you got to repeat. You got to go
yeah.
back to the beginning and you got to take another bite. And then you have to reflect and reframe and restore. And I'll tell you what, that's the way we don't get bogged down in the past. That's the way we don't just let the past, and especially when it comes to, and I'm not a trauma expert. I'm not going to profess to be one. I'm a full time student again. I'm taking psychology. I'm going after my psychology major, and I'm learning a whole lot more. But trauma happens to everyone in some way or another. It doesn't have to be big things, it can be small things. But we all experience some sort of trauma. And so when we, with intention, go back and look, we don't have to just dwell on all the big stuff of life, just one bite at a time. Move through it, settle it, go back and take another bite. Move through it, settle it, go back and take another bite. Pretty soon you've eaten the elephant.
Yeah, yeah, this is really amazing. I think it's the fact that it just speaks Williams to solving a whole lot of those identity problem when it comes to other than living the other kind of life that is based on survival. I think it just speaks volumes that it's not all that can be handled at a particular day, especially your analogy with the elephant. It has to be bit by bit so we actually get to kind of make reference of it. And your framework is really lovely. It's reframe and restore and
Yeah.
repeat. And it's really amazing. So why do questions of meanings and purpose often emerge during midlife or major life transition?
Well, I'll tell you what, after a while, the longer you live, you start to look at the body of work that you've created. That's the best way I can put it. Maybe you've been very, very productive, and maybe you've been very successful. Maybe you haven't. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You get to a point where you're asking the value of the time and the years that you've spent being. Who am I? Am I a banker? Am I an author? Am I, fill in the blank? Am I a mom? Am I a father? Am I a bus driver? We define ourselves by what we do. We don't define ourselves by who we are. And all of a sudden, the things that we do come down to, really, is that it? I'm just what I do. That's how I'm defined. I'm defined by what I do. Now, for me, this became problematic because in my lifetime, I had been in banking, and I had been a musician on the road, and I had been in
Wow.
ministry. I was in ministry for 16 years. I was a father. I became, of course, I was a husband. I was a father. I became a grandfather. I became a singer songwriter. I became a merchandiser, and then now I'm a full time student. How do I define who I am? By any one of those roles? Is that the product of my life? Just that I'm a role? Just that I'm a dad? And it's an important role, don't get me wrong. But isn't it better that I am Randy, who is a dad? Isn't it better that I'm Randy, who is in ministry? Isn't it better that I'm Randy, who does merchandising, or Randy, who is in school full time? Isn't it better that I'm me first, not my role? And that takes intentional thinking. And we're not really taught to do that very well. We're taught to assume a role and then operate it.
Yeah, yeah, amazing, amazing. I think the way you just make reference of it just speak volume. And reflecting on it every now and then, why becoming it remove the pressure of so you talk about becoming rather than constantly facing ourselves. What is the danger of chasing self improvement without reflection?
Well, let me tell you, it's the same as picking up a weight. You go to the gym and you get the big bars with all the weights, right? And let's just go and try to pick one up, right? It could have 1,000 pounds on it. Am I going to be able to pick this 1,000 pound weight up? Well, probably not. Why would I do that, right? Why would I not want to reflect? Why would I not want to take a look at what's on this bar and
Yeah.
decide if I can tackle it? Right? So we have to reflect. We can't just say, "Hey, I'm going to self-improve," and then just run down the road. I mean, because we're running into something we're unaware of. What happens when I'm doing this? Where's it take me? Where will I end up? And can I come back at all? I mean, there's a lot of questions there. So you don't just grab something and go. That's why what I love about what I've created, and of course you always love what you create, but that's not what I mean.
Yeah.
What I like about what I created is the idea that I don't think people are broken. I
Mm.
think all people are becoming. I think that we're always in process. I embrace the idea of being a lifelong learner. You just don't go to school, get a degree, and then say, "Look, I'm done. I don't have to ever learn anything." That's not true. You should always be learning something, especially about yourself. Do I agree with this thing that I said 10 years ago? And if not,
Mm.
how do I decide? And then how do I start to communicate that? Do I really agree that being a dad is doing it this way? Or can I be authentically me and be a dad? And
Yeah.
maybe it doesn't look like the dad next door. I mean, you have to just look at it that what's the intention? What is your purpose? I mean, that's really what we're after is more purpose. So we don't want to just get into self-help. We want to say, how do I help myself? Sure, but let's do it purposefully. Let's do it intentionally. That's why for me I start with that reflect. Let's take one bite at a time, reflect on it, reframe it, restore it, and then let's go grab the next thing. Now we're just always in the process of becoming. We're becoming until one day we're like, wow, look how far we've come. And we just did it
Yeah.
a step at a time.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I think this just speak volumes on the particular framework we make reference of. Then that it's easier to just grow sometimes, which can be very detrimental, especially with the gym stuff we just make reference of. Imagine just more like I want to gain weight, and without reflection, at the end of the day, I might gain muscles in a particular area where I don't want to anymore. And to a larger size that yeah, it doesn't want it anymore. So reflection and reframing, then restoring, I think it's very, very key, especially when becoming, being that at every phase there's a whole lot of things one get to learn, and revisiting what you have learned before to know what is true, what align, and what speak volumes to oneself. It's yeah, it's really, really amazing just hearing this. Yeah.
Well, let me feed it. Can I feed into that just a little bit more? Okay.
Yes,
I'll
yes,
go,
yes, yes, you can.
this is a personal example. I know I use the weight room. I am not a weight guy. I mean, if you saw me, you'd
Yeah.
understand. But last year, about this time, I was presented with a potential health crisis, and I was overweight for myself. I was too big, and I knew it. And the doctor wanted to put me on this medicine and do all these things. And I didn't want to do that. And I said, listen, I know that I'm got too many pounds on me. So I want to work at that. I want to work at it with my diet. I want to work at it with doing the things that'll change my body a little bit. And like I said, I'm not a weight guy. I'm not going to go to the gym,
Yeah.
but I love to walk. I love to walk. There's something about getting outside and walking, just going, letting the warmth or the cool breeze, whichever it is, let the sun, let the wind, listen to the birds, the trees. I don't care what it is, but your feet are on the ground and you're just going. And I can do 3 to 6 miles. I love it. I just
Good.
want to keep going. Yesterday I did over 6 miles between my
Wow.
job and then actually going out and taking walks. I put on 6 miles yesterday. I lost 50 pounds from January of last year to now. And I did it. You ready for this one? One step
Yeah.
time. I really did. I mean, and I'm not sitting here patting myself on the back. It was a process. I'll never forget the day that I went, wow, my pants are really loose. And I recognized the change in me. And one day, when we do this process internally, all of a sudden we look at the roles we've been playing, we look at the person we've been that's not really who we were, and we start to realize that it doesn't fit us anymore.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. This is really the lovely one. Thanks so much about like sharing your own personal experience. Yeah,
You're very welcome.
it's really lovely. There's a whole lot of things to actually get to look up to, when it comes to becoming, and the reflection really plays a whole role from what you just make reference of, and it's so true. Yeah, because it's through reflection you get to know who you have become and what you are becoming, and the process you need to engage more into. We talk about reframe and restore. The process you need to do more, to become the real thing you're actually more like looking for. So reflection really speaks volume. So you emphasize language. How the words were used to actually shape our perception. How can someone use language intentionally to restore alignment in their daily life?
Well, that really should be so self explanatory, but it's funny that we have to talk about it. Okay. And one of the reasons that we have to talk about it is we adopt words and phrases and sentences and even paragraphs that we quote that we haven't even asked ourselves what they mean. We haven't
Mm,
asked ourselves if we believe it. We haven't asked ourselves, is it part of us? We just say it. We just repeat the words. We just repeat the phrases. We repeat the sentences. Now, I've got no problem with creeds and prayers and pledges and things. Those have their place. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something as simple as, eat your peas. I don't like peas. I'm allowed to not like peas. I'm allowed to say, I don't like peas and I don't want to eat peas. I know that sounds simple, but words, what does that word, what does those phrases mean, right? So the things we agree with, those ideas, those concepts, we have to understand what they all mean. We have to. And too often we're walking through our lives in agreement with things that we do not agree with because we do not understand the breadth and the power of the words that are being used. It's just true. I am a stickler for words, and I probably am not as good as it as I should be. I'm giving it for instance. Okay, when my kids were little, and I've got two girls, and they're now 29 and 32. They're grown. I've got grandkids and everything. But when my kids were little, I would say when we were out and we're driving around town, hey, is anyone hungry? Now, what those words mean is, do you feel like you need food? That's what that word means. And your answer
yeah.
is, yes, I feel like I need food, or no, I don't really need food. Okay, that's the answer to that question. But my kids would, from the backseat of my car, say, let's get Wendy's. Hey, I want McDonald's. And I'd say that does not answer my question.
Question.
That answers a question that comes two or three down the road. But I wanted an answer to my question. Are you hungry? Then you answer it. You say, yes, I am. Wonderful. I'm going to take us to pizza. It might not be where you think you were going, but see, you started to make agreements without listening to the words, without weighing the words. And it's that simple. As adults, we have to look back. And the more we grow, we have to look back and say, what were those things that we've agreed to that maybe are not what we should have said? Or maybe we
Mm,
misunderstood the gravity of it.
yeah. Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for just make reference of this. I think it just key. I think that was the reason why you make reference of it earlier. That we can't just live in the present alone. Definitely,
Exactly.
at one point or the other, we're going to reflect on the past. They just speak volumes to it, being that every now and then reflecting on those particular things we declared true before.
Yeah.
Know whether they are still true even up to now, because they are very key in our becoming and in who we have actually more like comes our growing. So every now and then, owing to intentionality, and they just speak volume. Yeah. So finally, if somebody actually wants to find purpose without dramatic life changes, what small actionable shifts do you recommend to restore alignment?
I recommend first understanding. The first thing you got to do is you have to understand if you're going to try to move toward purpose and understanding and not be overwhelmed, you need to understand that it's still going to be a process. It's still going to be a process. You
Yeah.
don't just find purpose because you go, hey, look, there's purpose. I'm
Yeah.
picking up purpose. Look, I found it. You can't say that. But you can be on a journey. Again, I'm going to go back. We're not broken, we're becoming. So, what are we becoming? We're going to become more aware of our purpose in life. I'm just going to tell you sometimes the best thing you can do is ask yourself what your purpose is. And when you don't know, ask yourself what your values are. And if you
Mm,
don't know, start to define your values. Because when you start to
mm,
define your values, you'll start to define your purpose. One of meaningful things that I did actually came the year before I wrote the book. I was going through a process of figuring out and becoming for quite a while before I ever really just it was a drop one day. Like, boom, wow, look at all this stuff and I have to figure it out. For about a year before that, I had been working with a coach and trying to figure out a career identity. And what we ended up doing was not figuring out my career identity. We kind of worked through my own personal vision statement, my own personal value statement. And it was a heck of a process, but it really opened my eyes. Who do I think I am? Who do I want to be? And what value do I want to bring to the world? What value do I want to bring to the world? Because at the end of the day, I if the only value I brought was what Arrow told me to bring, then how authentic am I? I mean, how authentic if it's just what somebody else defines? I should bring the value that's for me. My personal statement is really it's about people. I just want to make sure that people understand, everyone that I meet understands that they've been seen, that they've been heard, and that they have value. That's my personal mission.
amazing, amazing, amazing.
And if I can add that to your life, then I've accomplished my purpose.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Reddy. I think this is very lovely.
You're
I'll
very
try
welcome.
to understand where you stand and also define your value. This has really been amazing. So, for my audience who wants to learn more from you, who wants to get your book, and who wants to reach out to you, how can they reach out to you, and where's the best platform to do this?
All right. So to begin with, my book is called The Re Method. It is a framework to becoming. I use my middle initial, so it's Randy E. Bishop, and
Yeah,
it is
Randy
available
Bishop.
on Amazon.com. So you can get it at Amazon. Anywhere that Amazon is, that's where it's available. And if you want to get a hold of me, you get a hold of me at Randy at lifelessonscoaching.net. I'll say that again, Randy at lifelessonscoaching.net.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely, the link is going to be on the show notes
Great.
for my audience to easily reach out. Yeah, thank you so much, Randy. Thank you for
You're
sharing
very
your
welcome.
insight on purpose, identity, and becoming. It's really amazing, especially with all the stories you share alongside it. It just speaks volume. Yeah, there's a whole lot that we can actually do where we get to reflect, reframe, and restore and keep repeating until what we are becoming is true to who we really want to become. Yeah, thank you so much for your stories and your insight. It's really amazing, and thank you.
You're
Amazing
very
having you on the
welcome.
show.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
thank
letting
you.
me come on and share with you. I appreciate it.